The Connecticut Valley in Massachusetts is flatlands along the river. The valley is fertile fields sloping up to the mountains. Settled by the English in 1635, the valley has always been noted for its great scenic beauty. Archibald MacLeish has written, "The valley, the bed of the prehistoric lake where the Deerfield River comes down to the Connecticut in Massachusetts, opening the northwest gateway to the wilderness beyond. It was by this gateway that the Commonwealth was settled through its highest hills and with its oldest hopes. And here too, in later years, that the old New England journey was begun again. Those hills are filled with towns, and one of them is Conway. Conway is a town 200 years old with 1,200 people. It is a place that Mr. MacLeish has called the perfect home for poets. Like most New England towns, it is spread out for miles, and to get there, you drive for long minutes by brooks and through woodlands until you reach the typical cluster of houses in the center. The center is where you will find the post office. The post office is where people in town meet each other and socialize when they pick up their mail, a habit Mr. MacLeish has always had. In the center, you will also see the library of Marshall Field in honor of his parents. It is an imposing marble structure with a Greek style and grandeur that gives the center a slightly imbalanced focus. Mr. MacLeish has been affiliated with the library for many years as a member of the Conway Library Committee. He has said that it was after he was Librarian of Congress that the town thought he was up to serving on this committee. To get to the MacLeish home, you take a right off Main Street and are almost immediately surrounded by open country, flat for hundreds of feet, and then Pine Hill Road. Pine Hill Road begins the climb, and the road turns and twists, narrow and treacherous in places. And almost suddenly around a corner, you see the large white MacLeish home.
We bought the house, which was then, it looked like an old southern plantation house in Mississippi. The pair who bought it at the very end of the last century were both from the South. And then they added these pillars and columns and so forth. The pillars and columns came off easily, and we got them off just as fast as we could. We were both enraged by them. It seemed an awful thing to do to a Yankee house. Then, over the winter, we went back to Paris for the winter of 27-28. And during that winter, this wing was built, and the pillar mess was finally cleaned up. The house was, in many ways, rebuilt. We put 2 or 3 more bathrooms in it by sort of squeezing closets and so forth.
There are several ways to enter the MacLeish home. Some guests come by the front gate, by the pineapples that are a traditional symbol of hospitality. Others use the drive, walking by a stone wall, entering a door leading to a narrow hall. The hall is filled with mementos. A table holds medals, a bronze bust of Franklin Roosevelt, and other keepsakes from a long and distinguished career. On the wall are honorary degrees, citations, and pictures, pictures which derive from various times in his life. There are reminders of government days, Judge Hand, Felix Frankfurter, Dean Acheson, Adlai Stevenson, Eleanor Roosevelt, and of course a portrait of the late president. There are other mementos too, like the law school picture and the photograph of the football team at Yale.
I played a kind of center that is now, I think, just about standard, but was not then. I played a center who acted exactly like a defensive back. I was about 2 yards back of the line and free to move. And since I could move a little bit faster than the right-sized men, I could sometimes get there before they did.
On a chair in the hall sits a picture of the house.
Before anybody touched it. And if that isn't, of course, it had no architect. It just had a carpenter's drawing. And if that isn't it's classic. It is classic.
On the wall up the stairs are pictures of the poets and artists he has known. Robert Frost, Ezra Pound, William Butler Yeats, Picasso, his dear friend Mark Van Doren, and James Joyce. Walking up those stairs, you come to a paneled hall that leads to the study, a room lined with shelves heavy with books. On these shelves sits Mr. McLeish's own collection of works by other poets. There are other kinds of books, too.
And that too, which is French, Spanish, etc., etc. And there's some novels in here, plays, and sort of books about books.
The shelving was put in the minute they moved into the house. And it is a well-used room because, in his words, they spend their time there.
Well, we also have, I'd like you to understand, we also have a parlor.
The parlor is, as one would expect, the most formal room in the house, sunny and spacious, with bold striped wallpaper which matches the design of a comfortable wing chair. The chair came with the house, he says, and the paper was chosen to go with it. Next is the dining room, which imparts a sense of quiet and large space with an open hearth, in front of which sits a reminder of New England's current energy predicament, a Danish wood stove. The back way out of the house leads to the gardens, and a magnificent long view dominated in the distance by Mount Monadnock.
Yes, but the strange thing is, which perhaps a photographer would understand, but I don't, that Monadnock becomes totally insignificant in any photograph that I've seen of that distant view. You put yourself in the middle of it, you pose, you think there's a mountain back of you, there's a molehill.
The gardens are a special project of Ada McLeish. Mr. McLeish says that these are his wife's gardens, which are hewn out by her small hands very largely.
She has it arranged now, so that there is no season of that garden. There's just a continual change. You wake up one morning and it's altogether different from what it was the day before.
One garden is formal, with a fountain and perennials. The other is a picking garden with dahlias and annuals to make bouquets for the house, for guests, and for friends. Below the gardens and down through the fields, you can catch a glimpse of the stone house. The stone house is where Mr. McLeish did most of his writing. It was, for many years, his principal place of work.
I haven't, because of the illnesses of this summer, I haven't even been in it this year. I have no idea what it looks like.
The outside doesn't change much. Inside, the mice take care of it. Most of his work in the last year took place in the music room built for Ada. The music room was the only major addition to the original house.
This we built. Ada was then singing. This turns out, as I think I told you, the beautiful acoustics. We have a quartet up at the Marlborough, at the music festival up there, who one year made a regular habit of coming down here.
Like the other rooms in the house, it is filled with furniture that has been with the family almost since the day they arrived in 1928. This furniture was, almost all, Mr. McLeish says, collected by Ada's father over a long lifetime of trout fishing all over Connecticut. One corner is dominated by a handsome clock. In another corner is the desk he has worked at over the years. There are tables laden with papers and notes for projects. On one side of the room stands a beautiful highboy.
Which came from one of Ada's father's fishing expeditions, up into the Cornwall. I forgot what I think she refused to sell it to him. And so he said, well, I don't want to be a nuisance, but there must be something you need or something you'd like. And she said, yes, there is. I never had a set of false teeth, and I really need them. So he bought her a set of false teeth. I don't know what they cost back in the 1870s or 1880s, but he bought it and took this away. It was full of nails. The drawers were all full of nails.
Several impressive pieces decorate the walls. One is a large poster.
Used by the Museum of Modern Art when they had their André Masson show. Mm-hmm. And I admired it very much, and they sent me a carefully guarded copy of it. And I've got it hung where you can't see it. I've really got to shift it.
There is also a lovely print, beautifully designed and colored.
Japanese mulberry colored. Only one family in Japan in the 30s knew how to do this. I had a friend named Yonusuke Natori, who became a friend during a long stay in Japan in 36. And when I left, he gave me that. I did not put it in an envelope and forget about it.
Over the mantel is a painting of Mr. McLeish's father, done by a journeyman painter.
And as that hand indicates, not a really good one. But the head is a remarkable likeness. He came to this country. He was born in 38, and he came to this country in 56. And I would guess that this was made probably just after the Civil War. It couldn't have been made before. He was having wretched time, but obviously at that point, he saved up at least enough money to have a suit. And I can prove the authenticity to you backwards. This is my oldest son, Kenneth, now dead. He died of cancer about 5 years ago. And I don't know how you can't judge what other people can see. I don't see that very well. But there is a likeness between those two. In the old days when I used to be able to see more clearly, extraordinary likeness.
There are other photographs too. Friends, family, children, grandchildren. Ada in her wedding gown, and a picture of Kenneth, his brother.
My brother, for whom he was named, was one of the first naval fighters in the First World War. And he was shot down and killed after 2 years on the front, which is almost unbelievable. People lasted 90 days and 30 days. Kenny lasted for 2 years.
When he talks about his brother, it is clear that the memory of great loss is still fresh with him, even though some of the anguish has been exorcised in poems like Memorial Rain and Lines for an Interment. The process of writing these poems is the same, he says, as for any other poem he has composed. In fact, since the years in Paris, his work habits have remained the same.
This writing. I began writing in the morning, and I've done so ever since, moving the morning farther and farther forward, which is just the opposite of most American writers who seem to write at night, moving it backward and backward until finally they're up till 4 and then 5.
And the process of writing has also remained unchanged over the years. Some questions about that process are, of course, impossible to answer. But there are other questions, the poet says, can be responded to.
One question is, what comes into your head first? And then various possible alternatives. An idea, an image, a sound, a rhythm, a combination of rhythm and sound, a combination of rhythm, sound, and word. Well, if you play around with those things, and if you just come through the experience, which is always different, you find, I find, that it all begins with a sound, which is a rhythmic sound, which clearly has a meaning, but you don't know what. Meaning, it hasn't even words yet. You hear something that it's a beat, but it's a beat that could become a phrase, a clause, a sentence, almost any minute. And it's when it begins to do that you know you're at work. That sort of thing I think you can talk about, because I think you can recognize the experience. You can't reproduce it, but you can almost reproduce it. And that has been true of me for almost all my life, so much so that I have to say that that is the way it happens to me.
That process holds true, he maintains, even for writing a poem like Night Watch in the City of Boston.
Night Watch was the one and only request to write a specific poem I ever accepted. But what I found was that until I moved into a situation in which the process I was talking about a minute ago could work itself out, there wasn't any point. For this. But what actually happened was that since this was a new operation of mine, I forgot what I just told you about the processes. I thought I knew it. And I moved directly into not the language, but the subject matter. After the first break, I almost saw at once a law school boy and so forth. And it wouldn't move, it just didn't budge. It wasn't in life until I put Perry Miller and the Yankee Admiral of the Ocean Sea into it that it happened. Old colleague, Puritan New England's famous scholar, half intoxicated with those heady draughts of God. Come walk these cobblestones John Cotton trod. And you, Yankee Admiral of the Ocean Sea, come walk with me. You know none better how the bay wind blows fierce in the soul as in the streets its ocean snows. Lead me between you and the night, old friends, one living and one dead. And where the journey ends, show me the city built as on a hill John Winthrop saw long since, and you see still. Whatever is true of the rest of it, and I don't say that anything is true or is or isn't, but whatever is true of the rest of it, that's a poem. And it's a poem because its rhythm carries it, and its rhythm and it carry an emotion.
And always, even yet, a desire to return to the writing of poetry.
Well, that's what, of course, what I want to do is to get going again. Just putting this last summer just knocked that out. But I'm sure it hasn't knocked it out for good.
It has been quite a while. Really? When was the last poem that you wrote?
I can't answer that because there are some beginnings which maybe are the beginnings of poems. Who knows? I don't. There's nothing finished for a couple of years.